All right, good morning. It's Dr. Almanenshi from the Chiropractic Wellness Clinic, and I'm here to guide you through this webinar. It's called Thrive, and here what our goal is to try and assist people to embrace aging and to find ways on how we can improve our energy and be able to just age more gracefully. So my presentation last week that I did had a lot of information, so we decided that we were going to divide the presentation up into two parts, and so this is part two. If you missed the first part, don't worry, it's on YouTube, so you can always go in and check that out. So again, our goal is to embrace what we have and what is possible. Not everyone starts with the same foundation. So we want to make sure that whatever it is that you learn in this webinar, take a few gems. Maybe you can take 1, 2, 3 different things that are valuable for you and try and implement them, because the more things you can take and implement, that's going to be a lot better than if you just listen to a bunch of information and then there's no action that follows. So we want to be able to make sure that you get a good amount of information so that you can help enhance the quality of your life, your energy, and even reverse some of that aging process that we talk about. So one of the things that I think is really important is to practice optimism. And, people have things happening all the time. I mean, we, in this environment right now with COVID and everything else, we're very limited. It's very easy for us to look at things in a very negative way. Optimism is part genetic and part learned, so we can look at things from a cup half full versus a cup half empty perspective. So optimism doesn't mean ignoring reality. It just means that we're going to acknowledge a circumstance, and instead of being devastated and frozen in action, think about things that we can do to control, and then find something that you can act on to make things a little bit better. So thinking positive thoughts, surrounding yourself with positive people. Optimism is contagious. So be around people you enjoy being with, and that will help you as well. There are a lot of studies that talk about this notion that if you spend time in nature, it's good for you. And we know that if you walk on a quiet path, lots of trees, it helps to clear your mind. It helps to give you some mental relaxation. And there's actually some physical changes that occur in the brain. So research has shown that nature walkers have quieter brains. The scans show that they have less blood to the part of the brain associated with perseverating thinking. And some research shows that even looking at pictures of nature can improve your mood. So you don't actually have to be in the actual outdoors. You can actually look at pictures of nature. Sunlight also makes a big difference. So seasonal affective disorder is a real thing. Spending time outside is very important, especially having sources of natural light is very good for your mood. And one study examined that the effects of walking on a person's tendency to brood or perseverate over negative things. What they found was walking along a highway, for example, didn't really make a difference in people's minds and didn't change the blood flow in certain areas of their brain. But participants who had strolled in areas where they had more natural surroundings with lots of trees and quiet pathways, they ended up showing an improvement in their mental health and scored better on the questionnaires that they were getting, and just tended not to dwell on the negative aspects of their lives as much as they had before they went for that nature walk. So that's really great. Staying healthy, they say that when you're in your 20s, you have this time when you start developing a lot of patterns that you're going to grow older with. So there was a study that said that most people who adopted 5 healthy habits in their 20s, and these 5 habits were lean body mass index, moderate alcohol consumption, no smoking, a healthy diet, and regular physical activity, they stayed healthy well into middle age and older. And people who tend to get a disproportionate amount of weight in their 20s, they actually, what they're saying is in your 20s, people gain a lot of weight. And so this is the decade which will set up how the rest of your life is going to be. So most of the time people gain weight in their 20s because they just maybe don't prioritize things. They feel they're invincible. It might be because it's difficult to focus on health when you're spending a lot of time at work or at school, and it's tough to exercise. Maybe there are money challenges. But what we want to try and do is those people that we know that are in their 20s, we want to let them know this is a really crucial time to set the patterns that are going to be in place for the rest of your life. Now, many of you on this call are well past your 20s, so I understand that, you know, what can we do in retrospect, and that's why we have the seminar. But you may also have children and grandchildren that need this advice, because the last thing we want is for them to gain 20 pounds in their 20s and then they aren't able to shed that for a very, very long time. And gaining that weight early in life is very easy compared to losing it later. So I think that, you know, there are different aspects of why people should weigh themselves. And sometimes people weigh themselves because they are very stressed out and they always want to keep track of what their weight is, because if their weight shifts 1 or 2 pounds in the higher direction, they get really stressed out. In that case, we would say don't weigh yourself very often, because we don't want to encourage more of that stress in your life. However, people who weigh themselves regularly tend to keep their weight at a more healthy amount or a healthy level, because they're cognizant and can keep track of any small weight changes, and they implement action plans right away when they notice the scale is tipping to get control over their weight. So if you are that person who perseverates and will get depressed every time you look at the scale, don't weigh yourself. But if you can get motivated by looking at little changes in your weight on a regular basis, then weigh yourself often. And weigh yourself, you know, it could be once a week or twice a week, because you want to keep track of how your weight changes so you can do something to help make that better. Another thing that can help you with aging, and we talked a lot about this on our last seminar, is health goals, right? We want to be focused on health goals that focus on behaviors, but we have to be realistic about the outcomes. So when we are having our goals, we want to make sure that we are going to be realistic and not overshoot. So if we want to lose 50 pounds in 2 months, that might be a little unrealistic. However, you know, if you have a plan in place where you get increased activity, you may be able to shed a pound a week, even if you're very careful. So let's talk a little bit about exercise for weight loss. If you want to exercise for weight loss, you may need to exercise up to 60 minutes a day of moderate cardio. But activities like walking and bicycling, dancing, gardening, swimming, these all give you cardio benefits, but you need to devote a lot of time if you want to lose weight. If your goal is to just improve your health, then most people, most researchers believe that 30 minutes a day is fine of these types of moderate intensity workouts. But you know, there was a research that was done not too long ago from McMaster University that included, you know, the effects of doing shorter workouts. So instead of doing moderate intensity workouts, work at the highest intensity you can possibly do, and do that for 5 minutes a day. And the research found that 5 minutes a day at your highest intensity was actually giving the same results as people who had worked out longer at lower intensity. So you can use that to your advantage. If you don't have a lot of time to work out, try and increase the intensity of your cardiovascular workouts. And that will even things off. Not many people have an hour a day that they can spend in just doing moderate intensity cardiovascular training. So there's ways to modify that by increasing the intensity and reducing the time that you spend doing that. So I think that's really important. And as we age and we want more energy, physical activity is so critical in all of that. You know, cooking is very important way of trying to improve your life. It's not necessary that you have to cook all of your meals, but if you do cook more, it is learning to eat more healthy, and also it will save you money. So learning to cook involves a lot of work, planning, shopping, than the actual cooking, preparing, cooking, and cleanup. So it does take more time than going through your fast food drive-throughs. But if you want to really focus on improving your diet and making it more healthy, embracing whole grains, reducing salts and sodas, these are really, cooking at home is a great way to do this. Just don't buy the bad stuff and work with what you do have at home. Increase the amount of fruits and vegetables that you eat and other nutrient-rich foods, and use your healthy oils and lean, healthy protein. So I think that there's lots that we can do when we learn how to cook. And, you can experiment with herbs and spices, and there's so many different techniques and recipes that you can find at our fingertips now, more so than 10, 15, 20 years ago, when we didn't have Dr. Google or other things that we can just look up on YouTube. There's a lot of convenience in being able to make interesting foods and improve your diet, and not having it boring. There's lots of things that we can do by searching online and helping to find these solutions. And it's a great way to add to your goal of having a healthier, enjoyable diet, and one that's sustainable, so that you won't just try and cook for a week and then give up. Just be realistic with what you want to do and what you're able to do. I also wanted to talk a little bit about water. Now, we talked a little bit about water the last seminar, but staying hydrated is so important. It maintains your energy. It prevents headaches and other things that dehydration causes. Sometimes people feel they're hungry, and really they're not really hungry. They're usually just thirsty. So there's lots of things that you can do to make your water more interesting. You can put lemons and limes into it. Lemons are a very healthy source of vitamin C. And the juice from a quarter of a lemon or a lime has about 3.3 milligrams of vitamin C. So making it a habit of drinking water with lemon juice or lime juice, it can boost how much vitamin C you actually take as well. Adults should get between 70 to 90 milligrams of vitamin C per day. And so you can get a lot of that from just adding fruit to your water. And so how much water should you really take a day? They say half of your body weight in ounces, or as much as you need to never get thirsty, whichever is more. And remember that there are other beverages that you can drink, such as coffee, that are dehydrating, so you need to drink extra water to negate the effects of the coffee. And I think it was like for every cup of coffee, you have to drink 2 or 3 glasses of water just to negate the effects, the dehydrating effects. And then you add your regular amount of water that you should be drinking for your body weight above that. So that's something that that you should consider. And some people have asked me, some patients have asked me, what about smoothies? You know, if you have water in your smoothies, does that count? And really, I'm talking about real water, right? Smoothies are fine, but they have a lot of other things in them, and sometimes you need extra water in addition to the smoothies. So the smoothies can be your special drink of the day, but really focus on staying hydrated with water, and then you can always have the other beverages on top of that. So in terms of diet, there's a lot of research that talks about plant-based diets that can improve your overall heart health. And the two most recommended diets are the DASH diet and the Mediterranean diet, because they both emphasize higher fiber levels and healthy fats. So the DASH diet includes plenty of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, non-fat or low-fat dairy. It talks about lean proteins, such as having lots of fish and poultry and beans. And then they want you to have lots of healthy fats. So for example, nuts and seeds and vegetable oils. You want to limit the amount of salt and sugar and processed foods and red meats. And that's the DASH diet, D-A-S-H. The Mediterranean diet includes plenty of fruits and vegetables and whole grains, and healthy fats like nuts and olive oil instead of the unhealthy fats like butter. Now, I have a little bit of a tangent I want to take. I think butter is fine because it's more natural than margarine or a chemically based substitute for butter. So if you don't like to give up your butter, don't give it up. But please don't substitute the butter with something that's more chemical or artificial. I can't believe it's not butter or margarine and other things like that. And I'm sure all of you are aware of this. The Mediterranean diet also asks you to limit your salt, and instead of having salt, you can get herbs and spices to flavor your food. And mainly you're having fish and poultry for protein, with red meat in moderation just a couple of times a month. So those are the two main diets. And busy people often want to eat meals, quick meals, and so they tend to want to go and you know, grab something very quick that'll satiate them. And so if you can prepare your workspace or wherever you're going to be and carry with you a healthier snack, you can use apples, a can of nuts, or peaches or pears or something like that. Just focus on trying to eliminate the processed foods and the refined carbohydrates, and try and prepare for those busy times when you are really busy with these extra snacks laying around, so you don't get off track. And then when you really can enjoy the times when you can go home and cook, you can really have a great meal at home. Okay, and sometimes you can even order healthy foods from places and consider like a delivery service if you're really short on time and can't cook at home. So that would be another option. We want to try and have more fruits and vegetables in our diet. There are a lot of antioxidant benefits from having lots of fruits and vegetables in our diet, especially advertised by the cancer societies in Canada and America. And, you know, one of the things that I try and teach my patients is to say there's a ratio. You should have fruits mainly in the morning, and you should have vegetables in the afternoon if you had to pick times of the day. Fruits help with digestion, and so having them earlier in the day, like before noon, is probably best. And then vegetables are more healing in nature, so having vegetables that stay with you throughout the day. And to have maybe a 1-to-3 ratio of fruits and vegetables. So if you have one fruit, you should balance that out with 3 servings of vegetables. And that actually helps A lot of people think fruits and vegetables, they prefer the fruit, so they just eat fruits all day long. And there's a lot of sugar that comes with that. So it's really great to be able to have that ratio in place where you're having fewer fruits and vegetables, but overall as many fruits and vegetables as you can eat. Again, cooking at home with unprocessed foods are a great way of getting these fruits and vegetables. And when you cook, consider having half of your plate with vegetables, and then maybe a quarter with the protein and a quarter or just a little bit of carbohydrates. And those carbohydrates could be a vegetable carbohydrate, such as cooked carrots would be carbohydrates, would have a higher carbohydrate load than eating raw carrots, for example, which has very little carbohydrate load. So that's another thing in terms of your preparation and how you're cooking your meals. Frozen vegetables are great time savers. So they probably have better benefits, I would think, than even fresh vegetables, because here in Canada we don't grow our own fruits and vegetables or have the variety that we have that are imported into the country. So they have to be picked while they're not ripened, and then they ripen the trucks as they travel to the grocery stores. So if you have an opportunity to buy frozen fruits and vegetables, it will save you some time. And those frozen fruits and vegetables are actually picked when they're ripened. So that's a real benefit. Also, when you are drinking your fruit juices, don't rely on fruit juices or dried fruits or concentrated forms of fruit sugars like juices and things like that as your source of fruit, because they contain a lot of concentrated sugars. It's better to eat a whole apple than drinking a quarter cup of apple juice. So you want to try and use whole fruits and vegetables wherever possible. Okay. Coffee and tea. Okay, so a lot of people have questions about coffee and tea. Coffee does have strong antioxidant properties. It's linked to having a reduced risk for type 2 diabetes. There's certain liver diseases and Alzheimer's and that sort of thing. And I think the reason for this might be all the antioxidants that are found in coffee. And so that is really, really great. The problem with coffee occurs when you add all the extra cream and the sugar in it. So coffee on its own is not a bad thing, but having Starbucks coffee, the caramel macchiatos, for example, while they may taste amazing, they do have a lot of cream and sugar in them. So that might actually negate the benefits of the coffee. And matcha tea is very high in antioxidants, and it actually has more antioxidants than wild blueberries or chocolate. So it's actually the most nutrient-rich green tea you can get. Tulsi tea, or it's also known as holy basil, has an anti-inflammatory antioxidants that reduce pain and inflammation associated with arthritis and cancer and degenerative neurological disorders. There is some information saying that it helps to boost the immune system and provide lung and bronchial support and fight free radicals and that sort of thing. So that's Tulsi tea. Kombucha tea is a potent detoxifier known for its antimicrobial and anti-cancer properties. So it's a source of amino acids, antioxidants, probiotics, and vitamins and minerals. It contains B12, and that's a source of glucosamine, which also reduces pain and inflammation for arthritis. So they say that it's very similar to what non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs do. And ginger tea reduces inflammation, and it helps to soothe the gut. So ginger is really known for its antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties, as well as its ability to alleviate symptoms of gastrointestinal distress by relaxing the smooth muscles of the intestinal tract. So we talked a little bit about sugar. You know, the more sugar you have, the faster you age. You know, like it's the sugar is inflammatory, and anything that increases inflammation is not good for our health. So, you know, kids learn by example. If you eat a lot of sugar, your kids will want to eat a lot of sugar. And so if you cut out sugar and you have a healthier lifestyle, you're modeling healthier behavior for your children and your grandchildren. So avoid simple sugars. And some of the easiest sources of simple sugars are soft drinks. There are breakfast cereals that you can purchase that have added sugar, and you know, table sugar, adding that to different foods, baking, all of that has a lot of sugar in it. So excessive sugar intake has been linked to obesity and diabetes, both which contribute to heart disease. And you know, sugar is really empty calories. I don't think that there's anything really nutritionally important about consuming sugar. And in fact, it just is a bunch of stuff that that we really don't need. You can have it once in a while. I'm not saying get rid of it completely. I'm just saying there's lots we can do without it. And it will definitely help physical pain symptoms when you're able to reduce that inflammation. Sugar is, you know, in large amounts is toxic to the liver, and the liver is causing that inflammation in your body. Portion control is important as well. So in our diet, it doesn't mean that we have to have tiny portions of food all the time. Actually, what we want to do is we want to eat larger portions of healthier foods like vegetables. So I had mentioned earlier, when you have your dinner, you have a plate, and in that plate you can put half of your plate as your vegetables, and then the other half of the plate can divide up with your proteins and your carbohydrates and your healthy fats. And you know, trying to eat that way is going to give you more energy, and that's what this is all about. You can choose smaller portions of unhealthy foods such as sweets and alcohol and processed foods. If you're eating out, for example, you can use your hand as your guide. So a serving of protein is the size of your palm. So you can think of 1 to 2 palms of protein. And then for serving of starch, so if you're looking at a whole grain like brown rice or quinoa, it should be the size of your fist, okay? And then high fat condiments like salad dressing and things like that, you just want to limit it to a few tablespoons. And a tablespoon is actually about the size of the tip of your thumb. Okay, so you can have 1 to 2 tablespoons of the condiment if you like. So sometimes you can just have a visual way of limiting that. You know, also another thing that is important is labeling standards. You know, the FDA has rules for how manufacturers need to list the ingredients in foods. And so it does allow manufacturers to list 0 amounts of trans fats when there's half a gram of trans fat per serving. So you may read the label and not see something in it, but because the amount is below the level required to actually put it on the label, you may not see it, but it could still be contained in that food. So, for example, if someone consumes only 3 servings of a food that each contains 0.49 grams of trans fats, you're not going to see it on the label, and eating that over and over will quickly increase the amount of trans fats that you get in your diet. So, I mean, I don't think that there's any safe level for artificially produced trans fat. I think it's best to avoid all products that have partially hydrogenated oils. The great thing is in Canada, we list our trans fats on labels down to a level of 0.1 grams per serving. So that's a really good thing. But anything that's imported from other countries don't have the same labeling standards. So read your labels, be cognizant of what you're looking for, but don't trust them 100%. There may be things in those foods that you're consuming that aren't listed on the label. Okay. So when we talk about fat, there are healthy fats and then there's some unhealthy fats, right? So some studies have shown that lowering saturated fats and replacing it with vegetable oil-rich polyunsaturated fats, and by this we're looking at soybean oil that's free of trans fats. These lowered coronary heart disease by 29%. And that's similar to the benefit of taking a statin to reduce your cholesterol. So changing out your fats is going to help to reduce your cholesterol in a natural way for some people, which is very exciting. We can change our diet to change our biology, to change our biochemistry. Now, the team that did the study, they concluded that if you're truly concerned about preserving good overall health, focus on having more of a Mediterranean style diet that's heavy on plant foods and unsaturated vegetable oils, whole grains like brown rice, fruits and vegetables as your main source of carbohydrates, and then consume few saturated fats like butter or full fat dairy, beef, pork fat, coconut and palm oil, and replace them with natural vegetable oils in polyunsaturated. Corn, soybean, safflower, sunflower, peanut, walnut, and grapeseed oils are good oils that are polyunsaturated. You can also have canola and olive oil. Those are both rich in monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. So there's lots of different options out there. Remember, when you have nuts, they have a lot of fats in them. And so that's a healthy fat. Avocados, that's a healthy fat. So it doesn't have to just be the oils, but there are lots of foods that we have that contain natural oils that are healthy fats. And walnuts are very good for your brain. It's interesting, in nature, Mother Nature kind of gives you a hint to how these foods help. When you look at a walnut, it looks like a brain, doesn't it, before you crack it open? And walnuts are very good for your brain. Similarly, if you cut a carrot cross-section, it looks like an eye. Carrots with their vitamin A, very good for the eyes. So Mother Nature has its clues on what we can use. Just have to read into that and study, be observant. So hormones and food cravings. I have a whole seminar that's just on hormones and metabolism and weight loss, and it's something that I wanted to do again and been doing it for many, many years. And I will probably do that in the month of June. But what we want to do is talk about why people get food cravings. And research, some studies have shown, or it's a new study that basically studied when people are hungry. They found that there are hormones in our body that drive hunger and signal feelings of being full. And so there was a small study that was done of obese men and women. Half of them had this habit of binge eating, and basically what they found was their hormones that helped them feel full were much lower during the evening hours. And that's when their hunger hormones started to spike up. So when they measured these people, when these people were stressed out, let's say they had an afternoon stress, those hormones would actually increase more. So the hunger hormones went even higher, and the full, the hormones that signaled being satiated declined even further because of the stress. So stress plays a part in whether we are hungry or whether we feel full. And in a 2013 Harvard study of normal individuals, they found that their circadian rhythms also play a role in appetite. So that's their sleep. And what they found again is that hormones are lowest in the morning, even though people have not eaten at night. their hunger hormones are the lowest in the morning and higher in the evening. So stress increases hunger hormones. And so when you're stressed in the afternoon, you can be hungrier in the evening. If people know that they tend to overeat in the evening at night, maybe you want to set aside some time to eat properly during the day and adopt an eating curfew. So basically, it's a set time in the evening when no matter what's happening, they stop eating for the day. So you can do this by creating like a kitchen is closed time in your home. So the lights in the kitchen shut off. Maybe you have a door, you just shut it. Everything is just closed off at a certain time. You brush your teeth, and then after that, if you want anything, you just have water. And you can train your body to regulate your hormones in a healthier manner by having these types of plans in place. At nighttime in particular, if you're really tired, let's say you had a really stressful day and you're not really wanting to regulate yourself, right? You have a bunch of food cravings and stuff. You can, by having the kitchen closed and you've got that time set already that you're not supposed to eat, that might actually help you to resist the cravings because you've already made a rule that you're not going to have anything to eat. So, that's not even an option for you. So hormone levels are responsive to eating patterns, and I know that you can potentially recondition yourself to change your eating behaviors by helping to modulate these hormone levels. And you can modulate these hormone levels by having set times for when you eat and when you choose not to eat. There's a lot of research also in how walking helps with sitting. They say sitting is your new smoking. I don't know if you've heard of that before. Sad to hear that. But sitting for long stretches of time is unhealthy, and we all know this. But many people just don't know what to do when they have those stand-up breaks. Are you supposed to just stand up? Are you supposed to walk around? Are you supposed to go jogging? Are you supposed to exercise on the spot? What exactly do you have to do? So there's a new study that came out that said that even a few minutes per hour of standing up can reduce the harmful effects of oversitting. So what they did was, actually I'm going to just talk about really quickly what sitting does, because I have this. Sitting actually increases your risk of diabetes, heart disease, obesity, kidney problems, and premature death. So if we're talking about trying to elongate our lives in a healthier manner where we have all the energy that we ever wanted in the world, you got to stop sitting. The risks for sitting remain elevated even if you exercise, but then you spend most of the rest of your day in your chair. So sitting itself is detrimental. So in a study published by I can't even say the word. I'm so sorry. I'm going to skip that. Scientists basically found, it's going to be in your references at the end of the presentation, which I'll share with you. But scientists found that every hour an overweight adult spends watching TV, which is their measure of sitting, every hour that they spent watching TV for an overweight adult increased their risk of becoming diabetic by 3.4%. And most of these participants were watching nearly 3 hours of sitting a day. So 3 times 3.5, that's quite significant. That's more than 10% higher risk of becoming diabetic. And researchers at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City, as well as with other institutions, they gathered and monitored data from 3,626 adult men and women, and most of them reported being generally healthy at the start of the study period. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to evaluate how sitting impacted their life. So most of the participants spent most of their day sitting, and the scientists checked the death records for this group of people for 3 to 4 years after the initial survey that they completed. And they just wanted to find out whether whether standing, walking, or jogging in lieu of sitting was best to extend your life. And what they found was actually quite unexpected. Having a low intensity activity like standing by itself had little to no effect on mortality. So those people who were sitting all the time and all they did was stood up, that didn't really make a difference. Those people in the study who spent a few minutes each hour engaged in some type of low intensity activity didn't show much of any decline in death risk compared to those who sat all the time. But for those people who actually walked around after standing, so they replaced some of their sitting time with light intensity activity, like just strolling in the park or just walking around the office or wherever they were, they gained a whole substantial benefit in terms of mortality risk. And in fact, if they just replaced as little as 2 minutes of sitting each hour with just gentle walking, they lowered their risk of premature death by 33% compared to people who just sat nonstop. So can you imagine lowering your risk of premature death by 33% just by getting up 2 minutes of every hour you're sitting and walking around? And it's not a brisk walk, it could be strolling, it's just gentle walking. This is amazing because every one of us can walk. This is such a great example of how we don't have to put a lot of time and energy into doing things that are healthy for us. Now, there were some people on the initial survey that said, hey, I'm already, when I sit for an hour, I already get up and walk around for 2 minutes every hour. So what if I increase my walking time for an additional 2 minutes? So now I'm walking 4 minutes more, 2 minutes more, so 2 minutes in their original 2. So that would be 4 minutes of walking within 1 hour of sitting time. They reduce their risk of premature death even more. So it suggests that strolling instead of sitting increases the number of calories that someone burns, and that's what they're thinking is causing this longevity. And so that can contribute to weight loss and other metabolic changes, which then can affect your mortality risk. And that was what the study concluded with. They didn't say there was a direct link, but they said there was an association between walking and reduced death risk, which is really great. So when you're sitting for an hour, make sure you get up and you walk around at least 2 minutes and walk around longer if you can, because walking is very, very healthy for your body. So, you know, you've probably heard about tests that measure chemicals in the blood. These are inflammatory cytokines that indicate that there's chronic inflammation in the body. Well, they're sometimes used to determine what your risk is for heart disease. So if you have a lot of inflammation or these inflammatory markers in your body, there's a correlation between having that and your risk for heart disease. There was a study published in November 2017 in the journal Neurology that found that having certain inflammatory markers in midlife that's circulating in your blood is also associated with brain shrinkage and poor memory in older age. So researchers measured 5 inflammatory biomarkers in about 1,600 middle-aged people. And they gave them brain scans and a memory test about 25 years later, and they compared it with people with no elevated inflammatory markers. And what they found was they had about 5% shrinkage of the hippocampus area in the brain, which is your memory area. And these are the areas that are associated with Alzheimer's disease. So the study is, you know, it's an observational type of study. It doesn't really prove that inflammation caused brain shrinkage or poor memory. But there are many studies that have noted that people with dementia have chronic inflammation. And so this study suggests that there's a change that occurs over time. And again, in this study, they used 25 years later when they were checking. So the main takeaway, many aspects of lifestyle contribute to chronic inflammation. Stress, poor diet, being overweight, not exercising. Addressing even one of those things is a good start. You don't have to do all of it, just start with one. And then, in our office, we also have therapies that are targeted to reduce inflammation. Specifically, I'm talking about frequency-specific microcurrent therapy and our cold laser therapy that help to increase mitochondrial function in the cells and make the cells more efficient. Frequency-specific microcurrent has research that shows that it reduces inflammatory cytokines that are circulating in your blood. And we can do this with relatively little time and expense. So you don't have to live with inflammation. There are solutions for you. And if you want more information, please contact me. I'll be happy to talk about that. Physical activity. Again, we're talking about being active. All experts agree that physical activity and sleep are the two most important components of good health. So physical activity is, it improves the quality of life. It reduces almost every physical and mental condition there is. So being fit does not have to be, long or boring or fancy or anything like that. Just 10-minute blocks of going for a walk or taking the stairs or dancing or playing with your kids or whatever it is that you like to do that just is fun. Just be fun, right? Just have fun. Be reasonable in your goals, right? Like if you're going to start an activity and then you set your standards too high, you can get frustrated or discouraged that maybe you're not successful at what you're trying to achieve. So what's going to defeat a lot of people is taking on more than they can do. And we don't want to set yourself up for failure. You want to set yourself up for success. So the best activity is going to be activities that you enjoy. And then you can see yourself continuing on a regular basis that fits your lifestyle, your schedule, and your environment. So again, don't get discouraged. Have a plan to regroup and restart if you're not successful. Every day is a new day. Just make the most of it. Everything that you do counts. And again, if it's just getting up and walking for 2 minutes every hour, that is still something that you can do, and that will help you. 1/3 of people don't get enough sleep, and it shows. Your lack of sleep affects your immune system, hormones, appetite, your weight, your thinking, your energy, concentration. It can, get you short-tempered. It'll affect your mood. Even it impacts your life expectancy. And unfortunately, people who have impaired sleep or insomnia symptoms are significantly more likely to develop clinical depression. So if you're trying to cope with depression and you have impaired sleep, that's not a good recipe. We don't want you to have suicidal thoughts and those types of things. It's just not healthy. So how much sleep does each person specifically need? It varies. It ranges from about 7 to 9 hours for most people. But it's not the amount of sleep you have, it's also the quality of sleep that counts. So if you're feeling tired or you have disrupted sleep, find out, first of all, if you have a sleep disorder, and then get treatment if you do. So there are studies that show that if you treat a sleep problem, those people who have depression and actually have a sleep disorder, when you treat the sleep problem, it improves the depression symptoms. Sleep apnea is an extremely underdiagnosed condition that increases your risk of obesity, diabetes, heart disease, early death. So there is a questionnaire that I'm going to post on my next slide, and maybe you want to get your camera out or something. I can even put it on the YouTube video as one of the comments underneath that describes the video. But it's called the BANG Questionnaire. to see if you have symptoms of sleep apnea. So this is the questionnaire, the Stop BANG Questionnaire to see if you have symptoms of sleep apnea. So it's at www.healthysleep.net, and then there's a bunch of other stuff that's at the end. Don't smoke. That's a no-brainer. You know, smoking can cause lung cancer, emphysema, COPD, which is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. It impacts your mood. It's associated with virtually all diabetes complications. And if you smoke and you have diabetes, you will get cardiovascular disease. It's not a matter of if you're going to get it, it's when you're going to get it. There's that strong an association with smoking and diabetes to cardiovascular disease. So about 80% of smokers, we know, they say 80% of smokers want to quit. And half of them have tried to quit in the last year, but there's no good, like the success is low. So they may have used nicotine patches or medications. There are behavioral modification plans. There's lots of different things that can be implemented. And they found that behavioral plans actually increases your chance of quitting by 5 to 6 times. And they're more effective treatment options when you try and use all of this together. E-cigarettes and vaping have become popular with marketing efforts that talk about them being less toxic than regular cigarettes. I don't think the evidence is there yet, and in fact there's a lot of research that shows that it has the same toxic effects, and it's sad when a lot of young people are vaping and they have diseased, blackened lungs, the same as people who've been chronic smokers. So I think the best thing to increase longevity, increase health, increase energy, having better mood, just don't smoke. Bottom line, don't smoke. It's expensive, it's an unhealthy habit, and if you need support, we can chat. I can help you, but let's just try and get everyone we know on a more positive, positive track in their life, and smoking is just going to hold you back from some of the other health goals that you may have. There is a difference between men and women in terms of how they approach setting and meeting goals, and there are biological differences. So there's a research article that talks about the male brain and the female brain, and describes the female brain as a lean, mean communicating machine, and then the male brain is a lean, mean problem-solving machine. So one's communicating and the other one's problem-solving. And so, if you're dealing with, a loved one's emotional stress, for example, a man's brain will go in and immediately start looking for problem-solving, fixing and getting to fix a solution. A woman's brain will spark in the areas of emotional support and listening and empathizing. So women are wired to focus on expressing emotions, while men are wired for more actions. And studies have demonstrated that men approach the time of getting home and being home at the end of the busy day, they show declining levels of stress, whereas with women at the end of their day, when they're leaving work and they're heading home, their stress levels are going up probably till bedtime, because they're kind of getting to their second job, right? So while I do know that families are working together, it just seems to be that nurturing role that women tend to have that increases their level of stress when they get home, because that's what they do. So where you have a problem and solving it as an option, solve it, no problem. But when there's a problem, when you have, when you try to solve it and those strategies don't work, so let's say you have a parent with Alzheimer's or dementia and you're trying to help cope with that, you can't really solve that problem. So we need to embrace coping strategies, mindfulness training, guided visualizations, deep breathing exercises, and other things like these that can help reduce your stress so that you're able to deal with the situation. So men and women just work differently because biologically we're just wired differently. There's also people who have done studies on whether people are happy with their work, and they found that 90% of people who are employed in their job are actively disengaged. It's 9 out of 10 workers spend half their waking lives doing things they don't want to do in places and with people they don't want to be near. So when you're looking at your career, try and surround yourselves with challenging and engaging activities. We want to have careers that help us exercise some discretion and control over what we do. We want to be having opportunities to learn and grow. We want to be in mutual respecting environments where people all around us are working towards the same goal, and it's very positive. But sometimes it's hard to do that. And they have found in the research that when employees have hard, have work that they are really engaged in, they tend to be happier overall, and their work is better, and that helps, everybody. And the Ohio State University research that was studying about how work influences life in your 20s, your mental health is impacted, and people who are less happy in their jobs are more likely to report depression and stress and sleep problems, and even have a lower overall mental health score. So your satisfaction with your environment and who you spend time with has a huge impact in your life. And even in the last presentation we did last week, we talked about how your state of happiness is dependent not only on the people that are immediately around you, but it goes to 3 degrees. It relates to your friends, and then their friends, and the friends of their friends. So it's really amazing who we choose to spend our time with makes a huge impact on how happy we are, and that impacts our energy, that impacts our health and our overall longevity. Clear your clutter. Cluttered area means you're going to have a cluttered mind, and you just free yourself from meaningless clutter that's around you. I think that if you hold on to things because they're sentimental, it just breeds more clutter. So take pictures of things that are important to you. Instead of keeping 10 things that remind you of somebody or something, just keep one. And, I think that it's important to clear the clutter so you can clear the clutter in your mind as well. There is a 1-minute rule. If you have a really cluttered space, just go and do the 1-minute task first. You may want to just hang up your clothes, or, answer a quick email, or, get your phone messages, or, put a dish in the dishwasher, whatever it is. Just do something that's going to take a little bit of time, so that if you do a lot of those little individual things, it seems that you're going to declutter a lot more compared to if you are feeling overwhelmed with your environment. And look at your screens, get the screens out of your bedroom. Turn your phones off during your meal times. I don't have to tell you this, but everybody struggles with it, right? Set boundaries, decide what works for you, decide how screens are intruding on your goals and your quality of family life. You don't have to have your phone around to have times when you just completely don't use screen time at all. And you may want to consider having a day where you're free of electronics altogether, and you'll notice that things change with the quality of your relationships and how you appreciate life when you're not handicapped to your phone or whatever it is that you have. And of course, there's a lot of potential for happiness in the bedroom. It's where we sleep, where we bond with our partners, and we want to improve happiness in our bedroom. So you have to make your bedroom your high priority. And what I mean by that is keep it neat, declutter it. Think of your bedroom being like a hotel room when you're on holidays. Make it into a luxury hotel suite, and do that every day. Invest in your comfort. So invest in comfortable sheets and pillows and bedding and good quality mattresses. Make sure that you have good window treatments, because when you block out light, it helps you sleep better. We talked about this last week as well, that light interrupts your sleep. Remove your electronics. And, one thing that's really great, if you can do, is make your bed every morning. Making your bed starts your day off with a small accomplishment. You're already setting up the rest of your day for success. And then at the end of the day, when you come back, it's neat, it's tidy, it's welcoming, and I think that making your bed is something that's so simple that can affect your mood in your day. Buying time. When you're deciding to spend your time, maybe what you want to do is try considering how you can increase more time for yourself. Harvard researchers found that when people spent money on convenience items, like things that would save time, it helped lower their stress and make them happier. And there was a project where Canadians were given $80 over 2 weekends, and they were told to take that $80 to spend it on material items or time-saving purchases. And the people who did this, they discovered that it reduced their stress and increased their well-being. And that's so important, because when we can just say, okay, you know what, I'm going to save time, and I'm going to take this much money and I'm going to give it to someone else who's going to do it for me. For example, you may want to hire someone to shovel your walkway or mow your lawn. And that investment will save you so much time that you can use for something else that, you might feel might be more important. So try it if you can afford it, and give yourself the gift of more time. It's a quick and convenient way to be happier. So I know we ran a little bit over on our webinar today. Thank you so much for taking the time today to spend with me here and sharing this information. I just love talking about health and wellness, and when we were asked to discontinue working, I wanted to maintain a strong connection with my patients. So this was my solution, is having a way of still imparting health information in a way that everyone can access. And if you have friends or family members who would like to get some of this information, all of our videos are posted on YouTube. You'll get a link following the webinar about what that site is. And, share that information. And the videos are written out so that, if you wanted to share that information about the sleep and insomnia, or the website there, you just go to the time on that video. You don't have to watch the whole video. You just go straight to that one time. So I'm hoping that you have found this information valuable. And we really want to make sure that everyone knows that that we're here. Shannon and I are here for you. And it's hard when you're trying to stay physically isolated from other people. But we are here for you. And whenever the time is right, when you want to return to the clinic, we're here for you. I just started practice up again. We are limiting how many people we are seeing. We have some special procedures in place to help everybody stay healthy. And so pay attention to your health and do the things that can help you be happier. Our upcoming workshops next week on Wednesday, we have nerve flossing exercises for carpal tunnel. On May 20th, we have tension headaches, and on May 27th, we're going to talk a little bit about sciatica. So again, all of these webinars are for free. I would like to share the resources here. So just for a few minutes, I'm going to go through these slides. These are the same slides that were on the other webinar from last week. They're all combined, and they will be on the video that's going to be posted as well. So that will be another source for you to get these slides if you like. And if you want more than one or two of these references, you can always call our office, and I'd be happy to just copy and paste these on an email to you, and then you can take them and start doing some more research using some of the information that these researchers have collected. So, how are we doing here? Does anybody have any questions? I'm looking at the Q&A here. If anyone has any questions, please go ahead and put them on. Meanwhile, I'm going to stop this recording so that we can just post this recording on YouTube. So thank you so much.